We're at the European 49er Championships in Aarhus. We're getting ready for a race start, and it's the second race, the Gold Fleet for the men. And I think we're pretty close, Andy. You can call it in. You can see the lineup.
Yep, they're lining up. Looks like the starboard end is quite popular this time, and port end maybe not so popular. We saw the pin end, and we saw how much some of the boats wanted it in the previous race. And interestingly, the Portuguese boat that slightly mistimed it and had to cross and restart went back, recrossed the line, and finished 6th in that previous race. So even if you get a terrible start, there's still time to come back. But having said that, Marcus Bauer thinks maybe we're going to be on a shorter course this time.
Yeah, we see the starting line right now, and it does look like the Croatian boat was over there in the middle there as well. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a general recall.
Portuguese boat likes this end of the line. They chose it again, so it was exactly the same boat. And they're going out behind the fleet. On the right of picture is the Irish boat, chose to start on port tack.
Port tack and dip the field.
Yes.
What's that about, Andy? At least you'll be clean.
Absolutely. You know that you're not over the line for a start. The other thing is that once you've broken out underneath the rest of the fleet, the bulk of whom are going out on starboard, once you break into clear air, you can put your boat where you want. These guys, to some extent, are pinned in by the boats either side of them. So once you start going out on the left-hand side on starboard tack, you're a little bit pinned. You can't make many choices. So the Portuguese boat here, for example, would be held on by the Croatian boat. He can't tack across, so the Portuguese boat has committed himself to this side of the course. But you can see him pulling ahead of the Croatian boat, making him tack away. That's the benefit of winning the pin, which is what this Portuguese boat did. And now they're in nice clear air, able to get maximum boat speed on and unaffected by any of the other boats.
Marcus, when you're on the water, tactically, how much talk do you have with the other boat? How much do you try and influence the other boat if you want a lane?
Well, at the start, you try to influence them a lot. You actually, as I said before, when you battle for that leeward gap, then you're actually shouting at people. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You shout at them and you
German
say,
or
you
English
don't go in there,
a bit of both.
or well, anything that works.
Well, what was your favorite language for shouting then, Marcus?
Well, it's kind of funny because you don't mean it in a bad way, but you're trying to influence the opponent psychologically by shouting really angry at them, because that's not against the rules as long as you don't abuse them, and you just try to make a point clear, and then you turn around and you smile because you laugh at yourself. It's not really meant to be serious, but you just want to make clear, don't go into that gap, otherwise it's trouble.
Okay, but you do say please, though.
No, that's ridiculous.
Right, you see, I would say please.
That's in your British gene code, of course. You can't do anything against it.
Nice lineup, good lane here for the what's that? That's 5 boats as they coming up. But man, they're a long way behind. If we're looking at is that Brazilian boat? Yeah,
that's in front of picture. That's the Brazilian boat.
He's launched.
That's probably a boat from a different fleet.
Another fleet, isn't it?
I had a look at where our series leader actually started, Dylan Fletcher. He headed out to the right-hand side, and it's going to be interesting to see whether that's going to help him more this time around, and whether he's going to come out well. He's looking all right, not great, but around the top 10 on the right-hand side at the moment. Great race so far for the German boat Heil and Plösel, who are heading out to the right-hand side as well. It's too early to call to see which side will pay off, but at the moment they're looking all right.
So we have got pretty well a line-up. All the boats, or the majority of fleet, Andy, are on port. There's this gaggle of boats working that wind shift in the middle of the track there.
They look like they're on a nice angle there at the moment. How long will it last is another matter. But they're in a nice patch of breeze there.
Oh, you can see how high they're going.
Yeah.
That's looking really good.
It does. Not so good for this Finnish boat if we think this Finnish boat is actually part of this race.
That's actually in the 3D tracking on the top view. That's on the left side of the screen. We have to pan a little bit here.
And looks like it's the young Kiwis who are leading at this stage, with German boat Highland Plösel just behind them. The Kiwis, very young guys, first season internationally. They've been training hard at home in Auckland with Peter Bowling and Blair Chuk, who got the silver medal at the Games last year. But these guys, not much international experience, but great boat handling in the stronger winds. And we're seeing another dimension to them here, Peter. What do you make of these young guys from your country?
Well, I didn't know a hell of a lot about them, and I had a bit of a chat to them this morning, and you know, they're obviously, I think they've made a big leap because of Burling and Took, and they've been their training partner. And like we talked about with on the women's fleet, they've lifted their own standard internally to the extent that young Hansen, who's only 21 years of age, he's right in there. He's in there with a shot, and in fact, you know, overall he's up there prior to this race in 3rd position. And he's at 20 and 21. They will be potentially a team to look out for.
Absolutely. Having said that, Peter Burling, he did go to the previous Olympics as a 470 crew, must have been only aged about 17. So he's already got 2 Olympic experiences under his belt.
There's plenty of depth down under with this, especially this class. It's such a cool boat for young people to sail because the boats look good and they go fast.
Yeah, and they just sail them for fun. Even when they're not racing them, they have a good time just sailing these boats, just for the sheer fun of it.
So leading at the top, coming up to the top mark, they've got not so far to go. It would only be the best part of 100 odd metres. Marcus, again.
This boat number 7 in the bottom part, that's the German boat Erik Heil and Thomas Plössl. But the boat number 6, that is Hansen, and that's from New Zealand. That's your team, Peter. Actually, we've got Germany, England, and New Zealand lined up right here, and New Zealand is looking the best at the moment on the left-hand side. The Germans just hung in there, closing into the windward mark. Left side is coming out great now.
I think the French might steal their thunder. The French out of picture, but going around the other mark, we've got New Zealand going round one mark. We've got the French going round the other mark. There's the French boat.
And Burling right
bottom
behind
of picture.
him.
Who's going to come out best this time? Burling with the black spinnaker, middle of picture now, looks pretty nice, and he's managed to get down inside the French boat in the way that he managed to avoid in the previous race when he did that nice little double jibe. But the boats further out to sea look like they're on a good angle, but maybe not so much breeze.
It does look like there's a little less breeze, but it's not that much wind up here either.
And behind Burling, out of picture, behind Burling was the previous race winner, Peters and Fitzgerald. So the young kids from Britain having another good race.
And New Zealand number 6 on the far side of the course is having some good angle there and some good breeze going down and fast. Now it's getting soft again. It's very on and off.
Very nasty rounding here. The Australian boat doing a double tack here. Not going well for them. It wasn't a great race for them in the previous race, and they're drifting around and not much breeze. Now look at the boats now. Look at the difference in angle. The boat on the left-hand side and not very much wind going high. The boat in the middle of the picture going quite nicely, and you can see the gusts further down the course. Once you get to the bottom of the course, more wind to be found down there.
Certainly having to work the downwind puffs and wind shifts.
That's the French boat that just jibed. That's Burling out to the right with the black Jenica. So it's been a bit of a gain for the French boat on Burling. I would say the French boat on the left of picture is looking very nice there at the moment.
The French certainly did a nice exit from the top mark. They got in phase. As we look, the crew work, Marcus, the crew work of these top guys is just impeccable.
Yeah, absolutely. They're used to these conditions, like Peter Burling mentioned this morning. That's what they had at the Olympics. That's what they're used to. Probably the class that sails closest to the shore always is the 49er, and they've learned to deal with these conditions and not complain, but make the best of it. And you see the top guys end up in front more often than not.
This looks like the outside, the blue spinnaker and the red spinnaker that went. That'll be Hansen will be one of them. I don't know who the other one was, but it looks like the outside course is favoured so far. They're about halfway down the second leg.
Yeah, we can move to 3D graphics. Here we have the sideline camera. That's the Italian boat. They'll jibe in a second. Oh no, it's the Irish. And let's go to 3D graphics, and we see the boats closing into the leeward gate. It's the New Zealand boat still in the lead, but very close. Is the Portuguese boat, is that correct? Yeah, Lima and Costa, they're very, very close.
Certainly, they have come.
I think that was
strong.
the boat we saw come off the pin end.
Right.
Was that the boat that came off the pin end? I think it might have been. I'm pretty sure it was. So they got they had that quite risky start off the pin end, but it's worked very nicely for them to put them in contention for the lead at this stage. And the French went round just ahead of Peter Burling and Blair Tuke, and Julian Dortoli and Noe Delpech doing slightly better than the Kiwis, but the Kiwis hanging in there. They didn't look so good just a couple of minutes ago, but they're still in 4th place.
In the background, you can see the boats rounding the leeward gate. We can see the leeward gate left and right, center of picture.
So it's New
and
Zealand,
one boat, first boat going
Portugal
around
is next. So that's
left-hand gate mark.
And going around the other mark is the young Kiwi boat, helmed by Hansen, crewed by Perebski.
And there was a Portuguese boat. So we do have a split at that leeward gate. Interesting split.
But this has turned out to be a little bit better race to watch. There's more in that front division, so we should be in for that's the leg 2. We're into leg 3 now. It's certainly still all on, isn't it, for that front 3 or 4 boats to take this one out?
Yes, at the moment it looks like Hansen, Perebski, the young Kiwis who went out to sea on the right-hand side of the course, are the ones that are profiting compared with the Portuguese that came out to the other side of the course. But they've not got the kind of runaway lead that the young Brits, Peters and Fitzgerald, had in the previous race. So it's not comfortable sailing for the young Kiwis quite yet.
Certainly in context of such a short track, there's quite a bit of separation, Marcus. You can probably do that with the 3D. Look at that, 2 distinct philosophies, isn't there, of which way to go?
Well, we have some of the more routine sailors heading out to the right-hand side. Lima, Costa, it's still a bit of a blank slate, I believe. Maybe you've got more background info, heading out to the left-hand side. Not going a good angle at the moment. Julian Dortoli on the left side as well. Burling and Tuke going a great angle at the moment towards the windward mark, going very high compared to the boats on the left-hand side. And the majority of the fleet seems to be in agreement to go to the right.
Yes, but it seems a little bit unfair on the guys on the left. They're just falling down into Burling and Tuke, more in the middle of the course. So currently it's tenuous, but currently it's a New Zealand 1-2. Must be happy times for you, Peter.
It was interesting talking to them this morning. They felt comfortable. Burling talked about his Olympics experience, and he loved Weymouth, which would make you happy, Andy, and certainly on the Noth course. But, of course, for those that have been to Auckland, these conditions are just like sailing off Takapuna, which is one of the iconic areas for sailing in Auckland. Offshore breeze, oscillating wind, and I think they feel at home in these conditions. I
remember how unhappy some of the 505 sailors were last week sailing in these kind of shifty conditions. You don't get these kind of complaints from 49er sailors. That's the way the class has always been, racing close to shore, racing for spectator entertainment as well as for their own entertainment.
So coming straight towards us, that's Hansen. He's leading, and I think tucked behind them, I think I can see a 2 on the sail. Just coming into that little bit of pressure is the silver medalist from 2012, Peter Burling.
And so, yeah, that 1-2 from this angle looks quite solid. I'm sure there are others on the far side of the course that we're not seeing that will be challenging for that. But
we can go to the 3D graphics, and we see that bunch on the right-hand side doing really well. So the left-hand side has proved to be costly. All leading boats currently closing in from the right-hand side, and they don't have much room anymore towards the ley line. But the breeze looks fairly steady towards that windward mark.
And it looks like they've made or got very close to that starboard ley line very easily, doesn't it? It must be quite a significant shift.
Marcus, I'd like to just, you said to me yesterday when you were sailing 49ers, you had a certain setup with a slightly softer mast, finer entry sails. Can you comment on what you're seeing here in terms of setup, say, between the New Zealanders and some of the key players in the game? What should we be looking for?
One trade-off a sailor has to make is whether he wants to go for a sail shape that is very forgiving or one that is very optimized. The forgiving one has more drag. It doesn't create the maximum speed. It's got more depth and more twist, but it's much easier to sail and it allows you to look around more. The flat profile has less drag, gets you more maximum speed, but it requires a lot more attention, which is not good in these conditions because you want to be able to look around. So in general, the top sailors today, they go for twisted and more deep profiles because they want to stick their head out of the boat and look for the wind.
So you're talking angle of attack. They just have a little bit more depth so that the window, the sweet spot, is not too fine.
Exactly. So you'll find that these top boats just will use a little bit more twist than we would see in onshore conditions.
So there's the leaders about to go around the mark for the second time, and they will hoist the kite to go down to the finish. Will they be able to hold on? It's the younger, less experienced Kiwis that are leading this race, with the French just coming in ahead of the more experienced silver medal winning Kiwis in third place.
But it's nice and close, and the race is wide open, I believe. So the young New Zealand team has surely not won yet. The French are jibing away, and so is Peter Burling. He's jibing inside, and he's actually going on top. He doesn't have much right of way there.
But look at the leader. They've jibed as well, and so they're jibing to cover and protect, and they're looking quite good as they go out of picture.
So when you see like the second and third jostling, is that a good thing for the leading boat? Does it give him a little bit more of an opportunity to make a jump?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if they slow each other down, that's only good for him, for sure. Interestingly, we see the pattern that we discussed before, where the boats go to the side where they gained last on the last upwind, and that's where they're heading off. That's where the top boats came from, and that's where they head out to again.
Andy, what are you seeing here? It looks like that black kite is really using that weight advantage you talked about.
Well, yes, and it looks like the leader on the right-hand side may not be leading for much longer. It looks like the boats that went round in second and third have better breeze and may well get over the top. So this race is not a done deal. Could go any of three ways.
But it's going to be interesting to see whether Peter Burling can actually jibe there. He's going softer now, less wind. He has to luff up. The French are going deep behind him again. Looks like he lost his freedom to jibe.
But no, there he has jibed.
Okay, he's gone around. So he gained one place, and he's going to be close to the young New Zealanders.
Who's trying to jibe on his compatriot, on his training partner, to try and take his air. But Burling's in a controlling position now. If he can hang in there, then he is the controlling boat tactically.
We should, but nice image right now. Let's stay like that. It was good to see that the boats in the foreground got a big gust and they're going low. It's a long way to go down to the leading boats, but you can see the difference in angle. They're going so much deeper and faster than the other boats.
That's got to be good news for the blue kite there, the leaders, Hansen and Prebsky.
And with the Finnish boat, interesting to see at the moment how they stay in the gust. They jibe, they stay in the gust. They're going to jibe back in a second probably to stay in that gust. Not going a good angle at the moment, but they're both actually at the moment splitting away from that gust in the middle.
Looks like the blue kite on the left, which will be the French, looks like they might have pulled down inside the Kiwis who have just jibed. So maybe there's a lead change here, just a matter of 100 meters or 200 meters before the finish.
That certainly looks to be that the French have really taken this downwind leg by the horns. And for my eye, I think this will be a win for the French team. We just look for the black spinnaker of Burling, but...
what are you seeing on the overhead, Marcus?
It's hard to tell at the moment. It looks like the French are ahead. Yep, that might be right. And...
oh, here comes some boats back, and it's... who's that? That's
Hang on.
Burling coming.
He seems to think that he's
Another
going round for another lap. Let's see. And maybe that's the case. Yep.
Our animation was actually showing maybe we're going to the finish, but...
well, we're in like 4 of 6, so there's another lap to go.
Another lap. So we were getting... but this is a brilliant race. And there's... one of the GBR boats has got in there. Who's that? Who have you got? It's Fletcher, isn't it?
Yep, that's Dylan Fletcher, who caught up to third place now. We have some issues with the tracking. We lost some tracking data, so we got to go with our eyes now. In which position did you see Peter Burling last?
I had him in there, I think, at second or third, and the Diotoli from France,
I think he's back on,
is leading the race. That was a very, very good downwind there, Andy, from the French. They didn't get tied up with the 2 New Zealand boats, did they?
No, well, the Kiwis were pressing them. Burling was giving them a hard time, but they managed to get in some clear air. And anyway, it worked out extremely well for the French on that side of the course. And quite surprising to see that the French managed to pull out so much on Burling.
We've got the animations just jumping around a little bit, but certainly...
There's some delays in the tracking that caused that. It's looking good for Peter Burling at the moment, but let's go back to our camera images.
As is often the case in our sport, boat handling. You know, there's one thing about wind shifts and wind speed, optimizing that, but Burling and Tuke are slick with their boat handling.
That's giving them more tactical options. That's the thing, is that when you've got the confidence to put the boat anywhere you want and know that however difficult the maneuver, you're going to come out of it looking good and not capsizing. If you've got that kind of confidence, then you can just pick your gust and put the boat wherever you want. We've seen that a few times from them today. And particularly impressive for Burling, who's a big guy, isn't he? I mean, he almost looks big enough to sail a Finn. So he's light on his feet for a big guy.
He's young and big and lithe, just like you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. Some say I have the perfect face and body for radio, but we'll leave that alone.
It's the race leaders.
Okay, we had an interesting shot from the aerial camera just a second ago where we saw the boats closing in towards that windward mark. And whilst you were speaking about boat handling, I thought, wow, this is a speed race as well. They were just sailing parallel, and at that moment I thought it was a lot about speed, and we can see it now between 1 and 2, between Diotoli and Burling and Tuke. It's definitely a speed race, despite the fact that we have these massive shifts on the course.
Certainly there's a lot going on, and while we've been speaking, Hansen has just dropped off the pace a little bit. He probably missed a little bit of a shift down the bottom of the course.
These are the top 4 leading boats. The French in the foreground in the lead at the moment. Not much of a lead though. It's 20 meters roughly. Burling and Tuke dipping into windward, almost teabagging. That's a bit unusual.
Well, that says how tough it is out there. Let's not forget that these are very, very difficult conditions to keep the boat stable and moving quickly.
You can see the gust that these guys are heading towards. I think Burling is going to get it earlier than the French boat, actually.
The French trying to defend there by the look of it, but it looks like Burling and Tuke have broken out underneath them and going faster.
Nice move, and yep, they're staying in the gust, going back up. You can see how erratic the wind is. The boats are going snaking courses, but nice move by Peter Burling there.
Marcus, in terms of the crew work, you know, being able to handle a boat, just talk me through the role of the crew. We talk a lot about the skippers. Let's talk about the crew work.
Actually, a great crew in a skiff and in the 49er. He thinks like a helmsman. He actually steers the boat with a mainsail. And if you think about it, it's why not? You know, you can look at a boat as a flying machine that has one wing in the water and one in the air, and you can steer it with a rudder, which is easier because it's a dense water is so dense, but you can also steer it with a mainsail, and the trimming of the mainsail, anticipating the next gust, is like a rudder. So you want to have because the crew is trimming the main, you want to have him think like he's steering the boat.
And the importance of balance, in terms of the crew really uses a lot of his crew weight to balance the boat.
Yeah, and they do that all the time, and they can't talk about it, of course. It's way too quick, so it has to be automatic, and they have to think as one, despite the fact that...
So it's an intuitive feel thing?
Absolutely. It's all about intuition and they learned it by heart. It's like walking for them.
Well, that's a nice little gain for them there in a very short space of time. They move into the lead, and if they can hang on here, and looks like they will get round this mark in 1, and they will be rounding ahead of the French by some margin. So that was quite a big gain in a very short space of time there for Burling and Schuch. There they go, hoisting and doing the jibe set, which we see so much of today.
Jibe setting straight away to get back in the middle of the course, defending that other gate mark, and they'll do that nicely. When the French go around, they'll actually be in the middle of the course already, covering their lead. Impressive lead they pulled out on that last bit.
Yeah, in a very, very short space. And there go the French, rounding in second place, and they're hoisting in a very nice gust, so it'll be a straight set for them. But Burling has jibed, so the French are pretty much following the leading Kiwis down the course, and that's a good defensive position for Burling. And you can just see the white trail of his wake coming into picture, and there's the black kite that's now leading the race.
Yeah, big shift and big pressure for the leading boat. And look, they were very close at the top mark, but you know, you get in the right amount of wind and get the right angle, whew, you're gone.
And there's a look back at the French, and just to your left would be the windward mark. Most of the fleet still to get up to the windward mark. Again, we're seeing very, very big gaps between first and last in this fleet. And there are no dummies in this fleet. This is the best of the best, but it just shows you once you fall out of the front of the fleet, it's quite hard to stay there. Does that surprise you in these conditions, Marcus?
No, like we said before, that cliche, the rich get richer, they just pull away. We're looking downward now from our aerial cam, and we can see the leeward gate, which is not part of that last leg. The boats will finish, and we can see the starting boat and the finishing boat in the background, and that's the finishing line. And they've pulled out an impressive lead on that in that last lap. Here they are, a nice close-up shot of Peter Burling.
One of the heaviest crews here, but fully stretched, using all their weight. So it shows how much power they have with these boats, even when they're going downwind. And what a big gain. What a big gain that is. It's just in the last 5 minutes of the race, and the French are nowhere close to them. Then again, for the French, it's pretty good news behind, because they have a nice gap going back to the next gaggle of boats who are in third, fourth, and fifth, and very much closer to each other.
I know Burling earlier in the week was disappointed. He fouled out in one race, got a disqualification, but he's coming on strong now that we're in the finals part of the regatta.
And that's the finish. That's the finish, and they've won this race, and they're back on the podium in the overall results. They're in third place. A lot of races to go. A lot can happen, but they're back in contention.
But not in picture at the moment, but not too far behind. Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syme from Great Britain still leading the regatta overall, because they are going to get a nice top 5 place here if they can hang on to where they are now.
Interesting to look at the overall results at the moment, the live results, that the top 5 boats in this fleet are actually the top 5 boats overall. And not in the same order. The leading boat is Dylan Fletcher. He's coming 4th in this race, and he's got the overall lead. But the top guys are all in there. That's
pretty unusual, isn't it?
Yep.
That's a pretty unusual coincidence there.
Well, it goes to show that this is not gambling conditions. It's not about luck. These guys know how to play these conditions, and as difficult as they are, there is definitely skill that matters here.
And I think the other thing to me is some teams look more together in the shifting wind direction, shifting up and down velocity conditions, and obviously, you know, Burling is enjoying it. Got to remember, he really has taken quite a big, since the Olympic Games, he hasn't done a lot of 49er sailing. He's been doing America's Cup type yachting. He's the current Australian moth champion in those high performance foiling moths. And of course you think of Nathan Outridge, he was a legend in moths. And I think it's great to see these young sailors doing a variety of different disciplines. So Burling, you know, it's taken them a little bit of time to get back on the pace, I think, here.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to do them any harm at all, does it, to spread around their sailing experience around different types of sailing. And you learn from every different type of boat that you sail in. And the Moth is a much faster boat than the 49er. He's also done high-speed sailing on the AC-45 America's Cup catamarans. But he comes back into this and he brings new experiences. I guess the benefit of some of the faster boats is he learns even more about apparent wind sailing. This used to be about the fastest boat around 10 years ago, but there are other boats that are faster, and maybe he's learning useful tricks from some of that high-speed apparent wind sailing.
So that's Morrison coming through there, GBR.
I think we can have a look at the overall results at the moment after this second race of the day in the 49er, and we've got Dylan Fletcher and his crew Sign in the lead. Then the two boats from New Zealand, Hansen and Perepsky, Burling and Tuke. Then another British boat, Evans and Powys. And in fifth position, it's French boat, Dortoli and Delpech.
Well, I'm very impressed by the second place Kiwis, because you look at all those other teams and they've been on the track for a few seasons. Hansen and Perepsky, they've done a lot of sailing at home. On home waters, Takapuna Bay, I guess it would be, but they haven't actually done an awful lot of sailing on the overseas circuit. So to be showing so strongly in such a highly decorated international fleet, that's particularly impressive to my eye.
Well, we talk about it a lot, don't we? If a country gets strong or a club gets strong in a class, and you can get 2 or 3 crews working together, the standard goes up. And I think Hansen has you know, he was the training partner for Burling, and now he's right on his case. I mean, he's beating him overall. So
you see that pattern very often, that in the post-Olympic year, those young teams which had a chance to train with the top guys all of a sudden jump out. They're highly motivated. The others are taking it a little bit easy, and they want to beat the old guys. And it's good to see these new talents in the class. Well,
look at the your German setup. I'm very impressed in Germany how the whole game is stepping up. We're talking about 49ers this week, but the whole game, your whole high-performance program seems to be stepping up. Watch out for Germany would be my pick.
There were a bunch of people getting together saying, well, Germany wasn't doing well in Olympic sailing, but it was in the past. In the 80s and 90s, the Germans were winning medals at the Olympics, and that has stopped after the Sydney Olympics, and some people got together and said, we got to change it, and it's nice to see that it gains traction.
I think you can put your hand up there.
Wow.
Marcus, I know you're heavily...
It's a big team.
I know you're heavily involved.
It's a very big team.
They're very lucky to have you. Brilliant racing, brilliant conditions, and lovely company. We are waiting. We're going to take a small break. We're about to set up for another race. And if anything, if that race was anything to go by, the third race today for the Gold Fleet in the 49ers, you've got to be back. It'll be fun to watch.